Hello, this is David Edwards with the Information Management Systems team. Welcome to our initial review milestone for this semester's project. Introducing our team, we've got Joseph, the team manager, myself, David, I'm in charge of testing. Mike is our user interface guy, and the Erics will be in charge of development activities. I'll begin with a broad overview of our project. We are developing a replacement system for the Sheriff's Department's booking and inmate management system. The major capabilities include detention processing, things and capturing of booking information. That's things like your social security numbers, names, address, basic information, as well as gang affiliations and anything along those lines. Also, trust accounting to track financial records and the non financial property that is being held by the jail until inmates are released. That's going to be things like jewelry and clothes that the inmate was wearing at the time of arrest. And finally, sentence calculations. Those are going to compute the amount of time an inmate must serve and their release date. For our development environment, we went with an OS independent web framework, and this allows developers to work locally with their own choice of OS and the set of tools they're most comfortable with. As a bonus, you get different developers testing things on Windows, OS X, or Linux, depending on whatever their preferences are. The primary programming language is Python, specifically the Django web framework, and the entire front end is all JavaScript, HTML, CSS, which is pretty standard for any web application. For our architecture, we're going with the Django web framework, and that is because it handles a lot of the back end work that comes along with developing a web application. Things like security, password caching, and then also caching of web pages so that it can be quickly served up. And then also the entire database models and rendering is handled by them. Our ICSM common case is a software intensive application or system. And this makes sense because this is primarily a software project and it should be independent of the platform upon which it's built. For our life cycle model, we're going with the incremental life cycle model. And this consists of dividing up requirements into various builds with each subsequent release, adding additional features to the overall system. And this makes sense for us since we have a limited amount of time and we'd like to be able to ship many iterations quickly. Our process methodology goes in hand with our life cycle model. We're using extreme programming because it's well suited for small teams working in close proximity and has a responsive feedback loop with customers and changing requirements. The short development cycles and frequent releases suits our purposes well, and it promotes frequent communication between team members. For software size estimation, we went with the source lines of code via Kokomo 2. We have approximately 250 new lines of code for our first iteration. We're reusing 10,000 plus lines of Django, but we do not have to modify any of it, so it should be fairly manageable, and the equivalent size is 250 lines. And using this 250 lines, it's our estimated labor hours is about 3.2 months, just outside of the length of this semester. And these requirements may have to be adjusted due to the fact that we are all students. So for our first increment, the high priority requirements are detention processing. We have about 43 items related to inmate data entry, like their name, address, gang affiliations. The inmate release date is also another important piece. We have 5 high priority ones there, and the system and performance, we have 3 items that are high priority, and those are mostly things like response time upon database entry, data entry. As you can see, we've got about most of our requirements are in detention processing requirements, and system performance and inmate release also have a few the high priority items. And this is just a modeling language diagram of our overall system and how it interacts. The inmate database will be able to be accessed remotely by officers, CHP officers, and the system administrators, as well as healthcare professionals, release clerks, and anybody else within the jail management system. Some of the risks that we are facing are time constraints, mostly considering we are all full time college students and most of us also have jobs. Another fairly significant risk is familiarity risk. Most of us have not worked with Python or the Django web framework to any real extent, so the initial learning curve could be fairly steep. And also the complexity risk. So sentencing and release date algorithm is complex with several moving parts and could possibly need to be broken down into multiple increments and released over time. And that's all we have. If you'd like to check out our source code and progress, it can be found on GitHub at the link below. Thanks for your time.